Hello, Tim from Fair Play Now on the 19th of February 2022. If you've ever wondered why it is that so many prominent people have either just gone along with the narrative or just stayed silent, I might have a story that might shed a little bit of light on why that might be. It's a question that I've pondered. It's probably a question that you've pondered, and I know that a lot of other truthers out there have pondered why it is. Most notably, people like Mark Devlin, who he's got his own theories as to why it is, and other people like him as well. Because it's strange why they are all in this lockstep, and so very few people, with a few notable exceptions, have spoken out against the narrative and kind of joined the likes of me and people like me who speak out and sort of delivered their own version of the truth. And I want to relate to you a story that I heard by a guy called Michael O. Bernassia, who, otherwise known as the Bernician, who I'm sure many viewers will know who he is. If not, he kind of is into common law and all that kind of thing, and he's one of the people bringing these cases against the government. You've got Mark Sexton, you've got Rainer Filmich, and then you've got Michael O. Bernassia doing his thing. And I've seen a couple of interviews with Michael, and in at least one of them, maybe a couple of them, he comes out with this very interesting story about his past. It seems like Michael Bernassia at one stage was a very talented filmmaker, sort of director, or sort of scriptwriter. I'm not sure which of those he was, but he was certainly involved with filmmaking and very talented at it. So much so that he had one or two films that he made way back in the day, I think we're going back about 20 years, which received quite considerable critical acclaim. And he was wanting to do another project, and because he'd had this critical acclaim, he was getting a lot of interest from high-powered people in the film industry, and also people who finance such projects, and things were looking really good. And I think he was, when he was looking into making this new film, he was in Europe, and he was called to see a certain guy, very wealthy guy. So off he went to this house, so his story goes, and he arrives at this big mansion, and he's invited inside, and he meets the guy in this very sumptuous room full of very expensive decor and bits and bobs, and they sit down and they're having a pleasant chat. And the guy then goes on to say, this again according to Michael O. Bernassia, the guy says, he says there's a group of about 100 people in the whole world who really make anything that you ever see that goes on in the world happen. And I just so happen to be one of those people. And what I can do for you in your film is make sure you get the finance for it, make sure that it's produced and made with kind of no expense spared, so it's just going to be absolutely spot on and fantastically produced. And then I'll make sure that you get all the rave and positive reviews that you need, and yeah, that will make you as a talented director, and your filmmaking career from there will be assured, and there will be many sort of future films that you'll be able to do, future projects, and you will become wealthy, you will become a household name, and you will become a sort of very, very well-known film director. And this is how the conversation was going. And then at a certain point in the conversation, sort of Michael sort of relates that this rich guy kind of sort of looked over at this door in the corner of the room, and he said, the only thing I need you to do is to never promise me that you will never, ever, ever reveal what goes on behind that door to anyone ever. And Michael, much to his credit, said, well, that's not a promise I can make, sorry. And the conversation pretty much ended at that point. Apparently this wealthy guy said, well, okay, he clearly wasn't expecting that reaction from Michael, but he said, okay, I respect your decision. And off Michael went. And he said after a few weeks, things began to change for the worse in very, very quick succession. Various people who had promised him finance for his project began pulling out, and before he knew it, the project was dead in the water. And I think he lost a lot of his own money that he already put into the project, and yeah, his whole life came crashing down. And obviously he's in the meantime has managed to build himself back up to a certain extent, but obviously he's never kind of been able since then to been able to get back to where he was. And yeah, you just wonder, is that what happens? Perhaps, people who have got a certain amount of talent, you've got to be able to demonstrate a certain amount of talent to start with. Then you get noticed, and then you start getting promised big things, and then you are taken off into a cosy little room, or maybe a restaurant or a bar, and yeah, like I say, you have this cosy little conversation where you're promised the earth, but you've got to also promise in return that you will never ever reveal the secrets of these people. And yeah, and the guy, from his reaction of surprise, clearly wasn't expecting him to say no, which means most people must say yes. And is that why all these people just seem so controlled, almost down to a man and a woman, apart from just a tiny, tiny handful of renegades who have, just sort of gone against the flow. And I think perhaps this is the way the world works. And we're not just talking about filmmaking, we're talking about pretty much every avenue of influence anyone could ever have. Sort of top sports people, musicians, artists, politicians, big business people. It could well be that there is a ceiling. People go on about glass ceilings, but is there a glass ceiling? You'll never ever, no matter how talented you are, you'll never get above a certain level unless you sell your soul and make these promises and then become really an asset of the powers that shouldn't be. And yeah, this is a question I've never even ever considered before, this whole nonsense started. But it's something I'm considering more and more and more. And I think this is basically the way the world is run. And it certainly explains a lot, doesn't it? It explains why there's hardly anyone speaking out on our side, and why there's so many people speaking out for the other side, for the narrative, supporting the narrative. Is it a case that, and it also explains why you get these different people getting wheeled out. One week it's this celeb, the next week it's another celeb. I think this week it was Mariah Carey, who was speaking out in favour of certain things. And yeah, I think they literally must get a phone call saying, oh yeah, you remember our little deal that we made many, many years ago, even many decades ago? Yeah, time for you to sort of uphold your end of the bargain. We don't need much, we just need you to say a few kind words in favour of the narrative, please. Certainly explains a lot, doesn't it? Kind of also explains, sometimes you see these people, up and coming people, along the way, and they seem like they're a real rising star, but then all of a sudden they just seem to disappear. And a few months or a few years later, you kind of, I wonder what happened to that group, that band, that comedian, that person. They seem to be really going places, and then all of a sudden they're just not there anymore. And is that because, like Michael, they said no? Anyway, very interesting point to ponder. Very interesting story. I found that from Michael O'Bernassia. I wonder what you think. Is this the way the world's run? Leave a comment in the comment section below, and I'll be back tomorrow. Actually, I probably won't be back tomorrow because I've got a lot of stuff happening, including a stand in the park curry night in the evening, which I'm very much looking forward to, and got quite a lot of other stuff going on in the day as well. But I will definitely be back Monday. Tim from Fair Play Now, thanks for watching.